you can trace every sickness, every disease, every ailment to a mineral deficiency. We are energetic electrical beings, and so is this realm, and it's all energy, and you only have so much energy. Biochemic tissue salts, also called cell salts, are minerals in energy form. People shouldn't think of this as vitamins and stuff. This is the shit your body is totally made of. It's not a supplement for your body. This is your body in a jar. The 12 mineral salts are, in a very real sense, the material basis of the organs and tissues of the body, and are absolutely essential to their integrity of structure and functional activity. If you don't take them, your body will make them, but it'll be using its own stuff to do it. It'll be eating itself alive to make this.
Yeah.
And once you run out of this stuff, that's it. If you don't give the builders the bricks, they can't fix the house, you know?
There are foundational pillars to knowledge that when you come to know of them, they can completely alter your approach to things. And when you have this new knowledge and information, and you understand how to use it, you can get positive results in areas where you'd previously been unable to. For me, today's podcast is about one of those pillars of knowledge for health and thriving. This is not new knowledge. Indeed, it is very old, yet it has been hidden from view and is thus rare. We will be learning about the very building blocks of our bodies, of life itself. This knowledge is critical, and thankfully, it's not complicated. Our guest today is Steve Falconer. Steve is a deep thinker, a very thorough researcher on a wide variety of subjects. He makes some powerful films and documentaries. He's also an author and a musician. Steve is very well respected throughout our world, and I'm honored to know him and to have him as a very dear friend. And I'm also very grateful for him for sharing with us his deep knowledge on this subject today.
This is what the old Hermeticists figured out, that
Yes.
all comes from mind.
Yeah.
And that's why they hid it from everyone, because they were like, shit, you know, if normal people get a hold of this power and figure out they manifest reality, like this could be dangerous in the wrong hands, you know?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's dangerous. The wrong hands are any hands but theirs.
Yeah. I did a talk with Dawn Lester, who you just talked to,
Yeah.
Dr. Bear Lando and Dr. Amanda Vollmer, and we
Yeah.
did this subject. And I like that Bear really put it down to like basic histology. Because I call this esoteric biochemistry, but Bear said there's nothing esoteric about this. He said this is old alchemy and just basic. It's basic alchemy, actually. You know, he's like, what's weird is what they're teaching our doctors and stuff now. That's what's weird and esoteric, because it never used to be like that.
Yeah.
But like, we're going to be talking about cell salts. We're not talking about kitchen table salt here and sea salt. We're not. They do have these minerals. What happens basically is inorganic non-carbon elements form into salts, and salts are electrical capacitors.
Mm-hmm.
And our bodies are electrical, they're electrical capacitors. Our
Yeah.
chakras are electrical resistors,
Mm-hmm.
and our bodies are electrical capacitors.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are 12 basic of these salts. I think there's 25 in all, but there's 12 main ones that align with each sign of the zodiac. But basically what happens is they break into four groups of three different kinds of salts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they make natrium compounds, three different kinds of natrium compounds, they make up the fluids in our body. So these are the salts that make up and distribute fluids, oils, nervous system oils, blood, all the water in your body, the fluids are coming from the natrium compounds. Then there's the calcium compounds, which are like the structural, the tissues and the bones and all that. That's your calcium compounds.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the phosphorus compounds, which they condense into the nervous system and the nerves, and they're the electrical capacitors. And then you've got the ferrum, which is the iron. So that's your oxygen, iron. Because basically what's going on is the nitrogen and oxygen end up condensing and making matter. These are these breatharians who are living off the air and stuff. Well, all the matter is basically just higher elements condensing into thicker, lower ones. So the volatile elements come down, and then they make fixed elements. Now, before we get into that, I want to, if I can share my screen, because I
Please,
just
yeah.
like to show people a chart here. Basically, the zodiac it's the 12 steps of wave mechanics. The sun is going through the ecliptic every year. It's just a wave, and every wave has 12 forms and mechanics. So what you have is you have, first of all, you have what's called a cardinal sign. So cardinal is the magnetic force in a wave. It's the explosive force. It's like, boom, here's what the wave's going to do. You know, like when you hit a drum, boom. That the first boom is the cardinal. That's bang. That's the first explosion into the form. And that's a magnetic force. And you can see on the left in our body, that makes up our renewal system. So that's our creating and rebuilding of our body. And then, so that would be your Aries, which is Mars. We'll get into what these salts are. That would, so you always have a fire, earth, air, and water sign in each one. And then you have the ether. So these are your five elements or your satanic pentagram. But if you turn it the other way around, it's not satanic. It's just the five elements and the four elements in the ether. But anyway, so the cardinal points are the first part of a wave. Bang. And so you've got your Aries, your Capricorn, and we'll get into what they are in the body. They associate with body parts and conditions. You got your Libra, your kidneys, and then you've got your Cancer over there. That's your Cancer. Yeah, we'll get into that. What each are. So then the wave, it explodes and then it gets fixed. So it just sits for a while. This is like when you see a wave file, it starts staying on a curve like that. So it's steadied out. Now, this is the vital force or the energetic system. So in the body, that's Leo, that's your heart. Taurus, which is that's like the lower face and jaw and speaking and all that. Aquarius, Scorpio. Then the wave is changing, and it goes. Mutable means it's ready to go into the next cardinal thing. So you've got boom. Cardinal is the explosion. Fixed means, all right, we know what the wave's doing. This is the property of the wave. Then all of a sudden, the wave gets ready to change into the next part of the wave. And that's the electric force in the body. That's the body's cleaning and purifying system. You know this when you do juice fasts, right? Oranges, fruits, and stuff, they're supercharged. They're electrical food
Yeah.
and they clean the body. When you want to build the body, you eat vegetables, magnetic food.
Hmm.
That builds tissue and all that, right? When you want to do a fast, you do juice fasts or water fasts
Yes.
because they're electric.
Yeah.
See, so they're mutable. They're getting the body ready to change into the next thing.
Mm.
And that's your Sagittarius, Cilicia, Virgo, Gemini, Pisces. And then each of those have one of these 12 salts that I was going to talk about.
Yes.
But so basically, the body is an electrical force, and the zodiac is the body drawn in the stars, and it's describing is the electrical wave of the sun and the body. That's all this science is.
Hmm.
And these, like I said, these volatile elements come down and they make salts. That's all that's going on is they're making salts, which are the electrical capacitors that help our electric bodies run. So what I'll do is I'll pull up one of these zodiac wheels. This one will be good. This one, I have another one, but this one's really in the right order. So the year does not start in January. Like this
Get
is
away.
not people. Yeah, well, people always ask like, how come December is called Deca and that means 10, right? Like, how come Octa? Yeah. The reason is because the energy of the wave starts in Aries. So the year starts now. It's funny we're having the talk right now on we're on the solstice right now. Like this is it. We're in Ishtar, Easter. This is where the wave starts. Now you can see on the left here, I've got the zodiac wrapped around Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer. You see that?
Yep.
And on the inside, the human body is wrapped around the
Mm.
zodiac. This is also our daily clock. So you'll see on the left every day the day's energy at 6 a.m. The sun, this is a northern science, by the way. So this is not a southern science. So normally in the north, depending on where you are, the sun comes up at 6 a.m. on the left. And that's your Aries. That's your boom, your explosive energy. The sun has just come up. Bang. We're in the cardinal point. So Aries is a cardinal point. And then it goes up and it gets into the fixed sign, which is Taurus. And then it gets into the transmutable Gemini because it's about to get hot as shit. And that's noon. And then bang, we get Cancer. We get the next cardinal sign. See that? and then it goes to Leo, boom, and here's 6 p.m. Now, these are your Egyptian gods, which are actually Irish, but we won't get into that. It's another talk for another day. Egypt is bullshit. Um, but 6 a.m. is when the sun's on the horizon, and that's where the god Horus. Horus is just the sun coming up on the horizon at 6 a.m. As the sun gets to the top of the day and it's really hot and radiating, you get Amen Ra radiating, right? And then it comes around and it's going to set at 6 p.m. and you get Set. That's Horus's evil brother. And he's evil because now it's going to get dark. And here's when the night comes and all the bad shit and energy, right? And then the moon comes out and that's your Isis down there. So that's all your four Egyptian gods are, your main ones, are just the sun going around the day and also the year. Now, these also, so these energies, they're not only happening they happen every day. So there's a lot of times when what's your star sign? What's your sign,
Virgo.
mate? I'm a Virgo as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I'm also a Virgo.
Uh-huh.
Um, so our energy time of the day is right here. It's 4 to 6 p.m.
Yep. That makes sense. That's when I'm most productive.
You know it. Don't you get like boom, active and all that, right? And this is also a good time for us to eat because these are your bowels, digestion right here. So for us Virgos, we want to eat right here.
That'd be interesting because I eat just after that between 6 and 7. I'll move that forwards.
Just move it early. Start eating a little earlier as a Virgo and see what happens. Now, so this also happens throughout the year. So this whole energy cycle goes daily and it also goes yearly. So this is why we're in the spring now, because everything starts to grow. It's a cardinal boom. It's going to start growing. The winter's over. This is when the seeds will start growing for your plants, right? The animals start mate all the bunnies. This is Easter. Why are the bunnies they're screwing right
Yeah.
now? Because the rabbits have a spring in their step. They screw in the spring. Here we go. Right now, to your head, Aries is called if you're a Christian watching this, like, I'm not here to piss you off. I'm just going to tell you some of this can be triggering. So just bear with me. Aries is what's called the ram or lamb of God. It's the cerebrum, the top of your brain. That's the ram of God or the lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. Sin means deficiency. And in the winter months, there's no food growing, right? Or they're having to eat it. It's deficient. There's no sun, no food. So the lamb of God in the Bible that people are singing in church and saying amen to at the end of their prayers, amen. They're saying amen to Amen Ra, the sun. That's all they're doing. And the ram of God is the cerebrum. That's also Moses or Abraham or Brahma, right? Every culture has the ram, Brahma. That's your cerebrum. And that salt is potassium phosphate. And like I said, the phosphate compounds are the nerves. So all your nervous system, when a fetus is born, it starts right here. The first thing to form is the brain and the spinal column, right? If you've ever seen a fetus in gestation, first the brain and the spinal column form, and then the body builds around it. And that's your electrical system right there as your nervous system starts the brain. And those salts make up your cerebrum, your spinal cord, your sensory nerves, which are a little bit different than your motor nerves, and then your face to lower jaw. So like you were saying, you were having some real bad eye problems. You would be wanting to take potassium phosphate every day.
Yeah.
Next comes Taurus. Now this is the bull, right? Taurus is the bull.
Mm-hmm.
Remember Moses blows the ram's horn, the ram of God, Moses, and says, quit worshiping the golden calf, the bull, right? Moses is your brain, your upper brain. And the golden calf he's telling you not to worship is Taurus. In other words, he's saying Taurus is all your motors. It's like your liver, gallbladder, neck, throat. And these are action people. This is the part of your brain that controls all your action, your motor nerves. And these people are doers and all that. Now, what Moses is saying is like when they say you're living in your lower self, your lower chakras, he's saying quit going around just shagging like a bunny and eating whatever, just like get out of your action brain, your animal action, and go up into your higher spiritual brain. And that's Mount Sinai. That's your spinal cord. And he goes up to the burning bush. That's the fire, your top chakra, the light, right?
Hmm.
So this is what all this symbology is about. Then you have Gemini, the twins. That's your two hands and your two lungs, the twins. And when you see Michelangelo's Last Supper, they're all the zodiac signs are in order. We'll look at that picture later. I'll show everyone. But the Jesus's apostles are all the months of the zodiac all the way around, and you'll see the third one, Gemini, drawn with his two hands out like this, and he's very clever how he coded it. And so that's your transmutable sign, and now boom, it's ready to go into noon, Cancer, the next energy. And sure enough, that's June 21st, and there you go. You have your equinox, right? So, sorry, that's your solstice.
Solstice, yeah. Equinox is
Solstice.
the middle.
Sorry
Yeah.
about that. Yeah, that's your summer solstice. Equinox is now where the days are the same length as day and night. Now it's a new hot energy. So this is June 21st. This is like when summer's kicking ass finally, right? And the weather starts killing and all that. And this is the body's elastic tissue and the breast and the stomach and the spleen. So this is this kind of part of the body, the torso.
Yes.
And that's fluoride of lime. So you'll see they each have a salt. Gemini has chloride of potassium, Taurus has sulfate of sodium. And again, like we said, the fluorides, there's like the nature, the calcium compounds are structural, right? Like we talked about earlier. Well, there's your elastic tissue. So really, there's nothing esoteric about it. There's structural. There's your calciums. Over here, you have your chlorides, your potassiums, which are the nerves, right? And there's your fibers, tissues. It just goes around like that. Then you got Leo, which is your heart, motor heart, right? Leo, the lion heart. We've heard Leo, the lion heart, or yeah.
Leos are
So
fiery in my experience.
they're very fiery people, yeah, and of course because that's right. Look at the months. That's going right into August there. That's when July and August are kicking. That is like the sun at its highest side. So that's also your backs and your sides near the heart. And that's your magnesium phosphate there. So that's a phosphorus. That's a nervous thing there too. Then there's us, solar plexus. That's our oils and bowels. And that's sulfate of potassium. Now, oils, the Odes of Horus says like poison loathes the oils. Virgos have to be really careful because they're highly susceptible to food poisoning.
Hmm.
And so we need to take a lot of sulfate of potassium. If you went to a party and there was some bad food there that was poisonous, and like 4 out of the 12 got sick, you can bet your ass those 4 were either Virgos or born before, and we'll get into how that works. I'll talk about malaria too. That's not
But this
caused
is
by
also interesting, Steve, because when I feel
Yeah.
stress, I always feel it around my solar plexus, always. And if it's
Yeah.
really bad stress, I get an upset stomach.
Yeah, and that's where you have your 12 nerve centers right there too. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
They say feel it in your gut,
Yeah.
right? Think with your heart, feel it in your gut feeling. Well, you have your 12 nerve centers there that are right there. So, and yeah, and then the oils, the oils that the body make for the cerebral spinal fluid,
Mhm.
which we'll get into, the Christ raising up Jacob's ladder, the Christos coming up to 33 vertebrae. We'll get into that. But they also are the poison neutralizers, and they're the oils that make your cerebral spinal fluid, or the Christos oil, and also your nervous system fluids. So it's very important. When you're deficient in that, old people run out of this. And so you look at the Rolling Stones when they were young, and now they look like raisins. You know what I mean? Because they're out of this. They're not making enough oils. This is why old people get wrinkly. And I'll show you how these relate when you start drawing a cross. You make the Christian cross across this. You'll see how the one sign affects the one across from it, and the 290 degrees angle to it. So I'll show that and talk about some of the biblical stories that are actually talking about this system. Then it's 6 p.m. So then we go into the next sign. There's Libra. There's your scales of justice, your 2 kidneys. It's your scale, right?
Yep.
So that's your bladders and your kidneys and your acid neutralizers. So that's your sodium phosphate. And that's a really important one, because when the body gets too acidic, it's really bad. And that's called sin and deficiency, and it starts to stop your brain from working perfectly. So when the world is in sin right now, it's that we're actually very highly acidic due to a lot of stress and an unnatural lifestyle and things like that. So that's a really important salt to be taking. Then you've got Scorpio, surprise, surprise. It's the genitals. The tail of the scorpion is a phallic symbol. So that's your procreative organs and also your vascular coating. So these are really important. This is lime sulfate, which is plaster of Paris, gypsum,
Mhm.
right? This coats all your vascular coatings and your stomach too. So people who have ulcers, they need to start taking this. This salt will start putting that hard coating back in their stomach wall. So if you're suffering ulcers, it's really important you start taking this. And I know a lot of people like, oh, I eat eggshells. It don't work like that. These biochemical salts, they're triturated or terturated. I can't say the word. They're ground to a very, very, very fine degree where they can only be ingested in real foods, or they can be ingested in these pills, which I'll show people what they look like. So you can eat all the eggshells you want that do have gypsum and plastic. They have lime sulfate. You're not going to take them into your stomach. You're just eating eggshells. It's probably going to make it worse. But you'll also notice we're getting into the lower part of the body, just
Yes.
like we did the day, right?
Yeah.
So the head is the sun rising, do, 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 do. It's all this. And now we're getting into hell, which is where the word heel comes from. Your heels on your feet are hell. And heaven is your head been heaved up on top of your spinal cord, head been and heel, hell. So the Scorpio, we'll get into what that is. This is where the old priests are supposed to be celibate. When you start ejaculating and stuff too much, you're losing this fluid that could be brought back up to your head again and open up all your dormant brain cells. So these are the stories of the prodigal son and all that, but we'll come back to that. Then you got Sagittarius, half man, half horse, and another name for horse is hippo. That's your hips. Everyone's walking on their hippos, right? That's Sagittarius. He's the hips. And also you have a sacral nerve system that looks like a horsetail in your body. If you looked on your butt, right where your sacrum bone is, where we get the word sacrum, sacred, there's the sacral nerves that look like a little horsetail inside you. So that's why the horseman he's got his little nerves there. And sure enough, it's your hips, thighs, spade, and insulators and nerves there. And that silicea, which is like sea salts, it's like a form of salt. That's real salt. You don't want to be eating like white table salt, you know. Um, so you've got that, and then that's December 21st, starts back into Capricorn, which is the bones and the knees and the sacrum, right? So Sagittarius is the hips and the upper legs. Then you got your knees and your bones, and that's lime phosphate. And then next you've got Aquarius, which is your ankles, and then the saline solution of the blood and the white corpuscles, the water bearer.
Hmm.
It's your blood.
Hmm.
That's why the man's got a pitcher of water, because he's the fluids in your body and the saline solution, and that keeps your blood and white corpuscles going around and around. You're screwed without that. And that's sodium chloride or natrium myrrh. And again, natrium is a fluid. Like we talked about, natriums are fluids, calciums are structural tissues, phosphorus are nerves, and ferrum is oxygen. So this isn't really like esoteric. It's just like basic histology. It's just that the ancients were genius at doing this. Then we have Pisces, which is Jesus feeds the people. He feeds 5,000 people with two fish, 2 feet, right? So Jesus is the fish, right? This is Pisces. This is your 2 feet. That's the two fish story, which are the feet and also your arterial blood and your red corpuscles. And this is your iron phosphate or ferrum phosphate. So the iron attracts the oxygen into your blood. We all heard it's like, although we're starting to learn that it don't maybe work this way at all, that we might not be living on oxygen at all, but electricity, but that's a
I
whole nother story.
Yeah. I think it's electrical.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. But
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, so that's your red corpuscles and your arterial blood, and also your feet, which would be your heels. Jesus goes down to hell to meet Satan, right? In hell. So that's what this wheel is all about. Then what you'll start to see is that these square with each other. So Virgo is the oils. And when you go across and then come up here like this, you get into the fibers and tissues of Gemini. Do you see that?
Yes.
So
That's on a
that's
90 degree, isn't it?
yeah, 90 degree. That's Joseph and Mary, or that's the Greek myth of what Arachne and what's her name, right? The one sewing the webs, and then the other one gets jealous and turns her into a spider.
Oh, yeah.
It's not Athena and Arachne. I've got it. We can find it later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, this is talking about is those oils are the ones that lubricate the fibers and tissues. So that's why these salts square. And then if you square that across, she'll go straight down into Pisces.
Hmm.
And this is Mary. So I can actually show you this. So, well, actually, let me show you this real quick too. So we all know this, the Last Supper.
Yeah.
Now, what you'll notice, some people who get into magic squares, have you ever looked into magic squares?
No.
All right. Well, when you take a square and just write 1 through 6 and then it's like Sudoku,
Yes.
Sudoku, where
Yeah. Yeah.
when each line adds up 1 through 6, 1 through 6, you get 666. And the magic square for the sun is 6 by 6 cube. So the church would kill you back when he painted this. So what he cleverly did is he put a 6 by 6 cube on the top of the ceiling to show you he's talking about the sun. So he encrypted the magic cube for the sun, the 6 by 6 in there, added up as 666, 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons, which aren't how atoms work. There, we'll get into what atoms really are, Adam and Eve. But there you have it. So Aries is at the head of the table. You're like, why isn't Jesus sitting at the head of the table, right? You'd think he'd be sitting at the head. Well, like I said, the year doesn't start in December. It starts in March. That's why Aries is there. There's Taurus, the neck. Surprise, surprise, Gemini's holding up his two hands, two lungs, right? Cancer. Now, what happens when you look at the analemma? We'll take a look at that. In the middle of Cancer in the summer, the sun stops going high. So every day the sun goes higher and higher in the sky, and it goes more and more south or west, depending on where it's at. But for 3 days at the solstice, the sun stops moving in the signs. It doesn't go any higher and it doesn't go left or right. That's why Cancer is a crab, because he walks sideways back and forth. You see that? And look what he's doing. Cancer's leaning over Leo. He's walking sideways to show you he's a crab. See him leaning behind? Then you got Leo. There's your July. There's the sun. Now Virgo, that's supposed to be Bartholomew, but it's a woman. And he drew a woman to let you know it's Virgo. That's not Bartholomew. That's Virgo, the Virgin. And there he is, sitting in the middle of the whole table is the sun. And then Scorpio, he's got his tail up. See the stinger? He's got his finger up like the stinger to show the genitalia. Libra, the kidneys, he's got his hands out for balance. Yeah. Sagittarius, Capricorn, right? Pointy Aquarius, the water bearer, and Pisces. And they've got Pisces, he's barefoot. They're all wearing sandals. He's not, because he's the feet.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Now he would have got killed. Like they would have killed you if you started writing that stuff.
Yeah.
So these are all Jesus' apostles, by the way, too. These are also Joseph's sons. These are your 12 tribes of Israel, the sons of Joseph.
Yeah.
So Aries is Tom. I'll make that bigger. Sorry. So see here, I've outlined the 6 by 6 sun cube up there on top.
Yep.
So you got Thomas, Gad, Thaddeus, Asher, Andrew, Issachar, Matthew, Zebulun, Simon, Bartholomew is Joseph, Judas, Levi. So these are your 12 tribes of Israel. They aren't real people.
Mm-hmm.
They're not historical people, and that makes a lot of people crazy, but it's the Bible is Irish wisdom.
Yeah.
hidden in there. Oh, we're going to talk about the Christos oil, or well, before we do that, well, let's talk about the salts a little more, right?
Hmm.
So here was a guy, and it's funny when you start looking at these guys. If you go on shit like what do they call them, like Wiki Quack and all that, like
Yeah,
the Wikipedia is always dissing like cool doctors saying, oh
yeah.
no, he's a quack. Every one of these guys turn up on Wiki Quack, and you're like, why is that? And this is Dr. Linus Pauling. He said you can trace every sickness, every disease, every ailment to a mineral deficiency,
Mm.
right? In other words, you can do all the German new medicine you want and all the healing and all the psychiatry and all the medication and all that. Your problems are going to come back if you don't have the building part. As Dr. Berlando said, this is just like they're the construction workers and the building materials. So if
Mm.
the workers turn up, but there's no building materials, they can't build
Not
your
going to
house.
happen.
You
Yeah,
know
yeah,
what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
So this is the stuff that builds the house.
yeah.
This guy is great. If you can get this book is weird. So this was a guy. Now, again, I don't want to push a physical science because this
Yeah.
is spirit manifest into matter, right?
Hmm.
So I don't want to sound like a materialist here.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that this is as important as all the spiritual work,
Yeah.
because some people are like, oh, this is just physical materialism, which what I'm saying is that this is also important.
Yes.
It's not all mental, and not you can't fix everything mental. You can for a while, but the
Yeah.
problem will persist.
Yeah.
So this guy was a analytical chemist, Dr. Charles Littlefield. And then he wrote this weird book in 1935, and it didn't get published till 1995,
Hmm.
100 years after he died,
Okay.
called Man, Minerals, and Masters. And he wrote that he was doing experiments with animals. And he said the 12 mineral salts are, in a very real sense, the material basis of the organs and tissues of the body and are absolutely essential to their integrity of structure and functional activity. Experiments prove that the various tissue parts will rapidly disintegrate in the absence of proper proportion of these salts in the circulating fluids, whereas the maintenance of this proportion ensures healthy growth and perpetual renewal. So we're talking about renewal here.
Mm.
We're talking about longevity, especially if you can hold your Christo soil, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
These mineral salts are therefore the physical basis of all healing,
Right.
regardless of the school, the school of health or healing employed. If these are absent from the blood and tissues, no permanent cure is possible.
Right.
So he's saying what I'm saying too, as well. Now, these are also called Dr. Schussler salts. A lot of people know these as Dr. Schussler, the German doctor,
Yes.
and also Dr. George Washington Carey. And I'll show some great books people will want to get if they want to get into this.
Hmm.
Matter that does not include carbon, science calls this inorganic matter, that is essential to the optimization of the human physical body functions are comprised of the 12 mineral salts. There are actually more, but these are the main ones.
Hmm.
A deficiency in any of these led to weakened cell structure or tissue structure, really. Cellular theories, cells are theoretical,
Hmm.
ill health, and lowered immunity, which is also a debate, immunity for what? But let's say poisoning events, we'll call that.
I was going to say, because I think we only have a toxic disposal system. We don't have an immune system. It's
There's
just
nothing
waste
to be
materials
immune
out.
from. That's correct.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll call this poisoning.
Yeah.
When the mineral salt deficiency is corrected, the cells again function normally and health is strengthened. Biochemic tissue salts, also called cell salts, are minerals in energy form.
Mm.
So that's what I'm saying. These are electrical capacitors. These are energetic salts or
Yeah.
minerals. Together, all 12 of these combined are called bioplasma,
Hmm.
and they soothe the brain and nervous system from exhaustion, and ascension symptoms have been given. So you can use these like also if you're having mental problems and things like that.
Yeah.
And then here is by a girl called Lisa Renee. She's really good if you want to look into her. The ancient knowledge was studied and understood by many of the ancient mystery schools. So this is a very old science, such as in Alexandria, Egypt, and Greece. And to me, this comes from Ireland long before. The importance of mineral cell salts in the process of spiritual initiation into hierogamic union, which comes from hieros, gamos, which means the integration of the spirit and the physical. So again, like I'm saying, our physical is very important. We're spirit in the physical form, like it's the meat's marinated with spirit.
Yeah.
The two should not be separated. They belong together.
Yes.
And these are the things that do it. So these salts allow the higher frequencies to be embodied through the nourishing of the tissues with the mineralized energy formed. So these salts have electrical spin, they're little toroidal fields, which is required to transmute the tissue. The tissue salts consist of the natural elements occurring in the body itself, identical substances. They form the basic constituents of the cells, tissues, organs, and the body uses their energies for all of our metabolic functions. So when tissue salts are required, there should be an adequate supply, which is what we talked about. If you don't give the builders the bricks, they can't fix the house. So it's really important. I take a combination of all 12 daily. You can get individual ones to cure different ailments, and I'll show people how to use this chart to figure out what to get. But if you take these daily, and you don't need much, you just take 3 or 4 or 5 and let them melt under your tongue, and they go directly into your bloodstream because you want them right into your fluids. And your body knows where to send them. That's what's genius.
Yeah.
Is your body knows exactly where to send it. Unlike aspirin and all the allopathic stuff,
Yeah.
we're on YouTube, so I'll be careful what I'm saying here. But unlike other medicines,
Yeah.
which just go everywhere and start giving you side effects because they don't, if you've got a headache, some of the medicine goes all over your body and starts hitting your kidneys. Your body knows exactly where to put these things. It's like Legos. It's crazy,
When we finish this, could you send me a link to that, the 12 bottle you showed up?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll send a link too. So anyway, if there's an insufficiency in the cells to convert their material structure to provide the energy, the cell goes into a depleted state. Should it continue, namely of material substance converting to provide energy without nutrient replacement, the cells lose, or tissues really lose their ability to function correctly.
Yeah.
Now, this is important because if you're not getting it in your food, you don't have to take the pill form. But I can show a list later which foods have which of these things in them. If you don't take them, your body will make them, but it'll be using its own stuff to do it. It'll be eating itself alive to make this.
Yeah.
And once you run out of this stuff, that's it. And the same, for guys who like to do a lot of masturbating, you're losing all this. You're losing these. And once you run out, you better be putting them in through your diet or you're not going to live very long.
Yeah.
So here's talking about the vortex they use to mix the spirit, to attract the spiritual energies. Every cell, or let's call it a toroidal field, has a spiral vortex. Every organ has one too. If the spiral vortex is repaired and rebalanced, so if the spin gets out of alignment or something goes wrong with the spin of the toroid, then the cell or organ can heal and self-correct. So you have to repair the vortex.
Yes.
Just like the aura supports the health, the spiral vortices do too. The etheric body is the first layer of the aura. In other words, is closest to the physical body and acts as a template for the physical body. In order for the physical body to heal, the etheric must first heal first.
Yeah.
Cell salts work at the etheric level, so they have a subtle but high vibration. I remember what I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you what happens when we're born and why we're deficient in these things. Remember, I was saying, like, you're a Virgo, so you're susceptible to poison.
Yes.
But before I do that, your people are all pretty cool. All your followers are like into all this, and so are mine. But if there's any people like, get out of here with that aura stuff, right? I just want to show people that there is really such a thing. And this is what these salts are doing.
The following film shows the human energy field radiating outward from the body. It dynamically changes based on the physical conditions, the feeling states, the motivations of the person, in interaction with energy radiation from objects and living things. The existence of the human energy field, or the aura, was validated and studied by over 12 years of high-frequency recordings. This film shows the field not ordinarily seen, but now visible. Like all living things, this little dog has a sizable radiant field, even when he sits quietly. Notice now, as he greets his master, the obvious love and affection between them increases the dynamic radiation from their bodies, even the dog's tail and the man's head. No wonder so many people have pets who give them pleasure and provide a vital field of energy to interact with. Wherever there is motion in the universe, there is increased flow in the field that humans interact with. See the explosive activity from the waves and from his body. Also, the electromagnetic field of the body is negatively charged or ionized, as are waves or tumbling water, which further expands and heightens his field, giving a physical exuberance and emotional excitement. No wonder that a day at the beach is so exhilarating and vitalizing. We all love a babbling brook and the freshness of outdoor vegetation and mountains. Most of us believe that it is relaxation and beauty which refreshes us. From our research, we have discovered that living plants and rarefied atmosphere provide a richer field of negative ions, which heightens and replenishes our own energy field. Notice that the man's field becomes light in color and high in frequency. It sparkles and radiates some distance from his body. See that as the child moves into the mother's field, the affection between them changes the overall field to a pink color. Individuals' fields blend and enhance when there is a warm, caring relationship. These energy fields are the largest and the whitest that we have shown. She is oming. On the breath inhalation, the radiant field diminishes, and on exhalation, it expands and envelops the child. We have known for a long time that Gregorian chants, oming, humming, singing, and whistling create an energy which perks up emotions and brings an expanded consciousness.
How cool is that, right?
Yeah.
Now, Om is interesting. Did you see when she was Om?
Yeah, it was like,
Sha-na-na-na-na-na?
that's right, yeah.
Why Om is so important is because all sounds are two things. Try to make a sound by hitting your index finger against itself. You can't. All sounds have to have a hit, a percussive hit, right? Well, the only ones that don't, even in our, that's why we have consonants. Most of our words start right. Well, the only one that doesn't have a hitting sound, the only noise that we can make that doesn't hit two things hitting each other is There's no hit of anything. That's why they chant Om, because it's already in a dynamic state. It doesn't have the explosive percussive. And you could see what happened with her energy field. And this is what all those Gregorian chants and all those mantras and the Buddhist nama, this is all they're doing is charging up the shit out of their field. The problem is we're in our mother's womb for 9 months, but you can see that there's 12 salts, right? So, right? You're starting to get it, the fall of man, right?
Yeah.
Fall of man, what happened?
I've got goosebumps.
Yeah. Well, what happens is for some reason, our mother's hips aren't wide enough to birth us. If we were in there for 12 months, we'd all need to be C-sectioned, right?
Yeah.
Why is that? So now here's what happens. So here's a person they're born here. So you're always, where is this person born? They're conceived 5th of March and they're born October 5th. So they're a Libra. Now they're born here. So when you go backwards around the zodiac, you can see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. See, there's your 9 months in the mother's womb. Well, where were you for all this?
Yeah.
Now this person was born mid-cusp to mid-cusp. Cusp just means in the middle of a sign.
Yeah.
So they're missing this salt. They're missing this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. Right? They have 6 deficiencies already. So this person's going to have trouble neutralizing acid. They're going to have bladder and kidney problems. They're going to have procreative organ problems, vascular problems, problems with their hips. They're going to have bad bones, knees. Right? So this person, they need to be eating foods rich in these.
Yes. Because
they're deficient. They're living in sin. Now it gets worse. So that's a cusp to cusper. So here's a person a little better. they're born here to here. They're conceived here and born December 5th. So they're only deficient in the months they were in, and then the 2.5 between, right?
Yes.
So they're still going to have trouble with these.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're going to talk about when I show you what malaria really is. And I think I'm going to have to be careful with YouTube on what that really is, but we'll talk about it. Now, and then here's another one. So this person has a little better because they're born right on the end of the sign.
Yes.
So they actually had the full month. So it's like if you're conceived in the middle of the month, you still don't get that salt. It doesn't synthesize,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm.
So people who are born right on these 21st, 23rds, these kind of people with these birthdays, they usually have it a lot better because they're not missing so many.
Yes.
But you can see, so this is when you're in the womb, you're born here, and then you go backwards. That's when you were conceived. So you were never in your mother, and every month, this is also why the sun follows this zodiac science, is because every month, like I said, there's a cardinal energy, right? There's an energy that we talked about in the beginning of this talk, and it's not happening to you here.
Yes.
So your body's trying to make those things they should have, and they don't. I did a talk during the end of COVID with Dr. Barolando and Amanda. As Amanda said, doctors aren't taught this science.
Yeah.
So they never study any of this at all.
Yeah.
And the same thing I'll show you. So malaria is a good one, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll just pull this up since it has the zodiac. It doesn't really matter. If doctors knew this, they would start asking you what your sign and birthday was, and they would already know what's wrong with you. Like they just diagnose. You're like, oh, what's wrong? You're like, oh, my knees hurt. And they're like, oh, here's some drugs. But it's like, I'd ask them, what's your sign? And sure enough, you're going to find out that they were missing, they were totally missing during Capricorn. Like it's a no-brainer. Now,
that's really fascinating, Steve.
Yeah. Do you have any questions before I talk about malaria? Do you have any questions?
No. I'm sitting here soaking it all and looking at that, and it's making so much sense. And I'm thinking about people I know when they were born and what they're struggling with right now.
Right. So malaria, they tell you that it's mosquitoes in warm, humid areas, right? And these mosquitoes are carrying the invisible boogeyman, and they bite you, and you catch the boogeyman, and all of a sudden, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is, I'm from Chicago. We get 82% humidity in the summertime.
Yeah.
There's no freaking malaria. We got mosquitoes galore there, right?
Yeah.
And the other problem is you read all these books, like 30 men went into the Amazon and 5 fell ill with malaria. And you're like, well, what happened to the other 25? They didn't get bit by the same mosquitoes?
Yep.
What? Right? And then in the old days, when you had malaria, they would take you up into a cold mountain resort high up in the air, and you'd get cured. But if it was the boogeyman, it would come with you. It would be inside you if you had the V word.
Maybe he doesn't like heights.
Right. Yeah. So what's really going on is the Taurus salt here, the natrium phos, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or sodium sulfate. Sorry, this one here.
Yeah.
What that salt does is when it's very humid out, you start taking too much water into the body, into the blood. You're because there's so much humidity. You're taking too much water, and then if you don't have enough iron, and you're also deficient in this salt here, your blood gets overcharged with water, and you have to start fevering and shaking to squeeze the water out of your tissues and blood to discharge it. You know, when you have a fever and you get the chills, that's literally your tissues squeezing out water. So that's really what malaria is. It's people who are deficient in these salts get down into these very humid areas, and they get too much water in their blood. That's why when they take them up into the mountain resort, there's no more humidity up there, and they get a chance to get the water out without taking in too much more. Now, my son is like this. Taurus people, anyone who's listening who's a Taurus, they hate humidity. They hate it in like the middle of the summer. Like, screw this. They love to live in like a little bit cooler places.
Yes.
And this happened to my son when he was a little kid. He's a Taurus.
Yeah.
And he had this giant bump right here on the back of his head. And all the family was like, oh my God, he's got brain cancer and he's only 4. And I'm like, no, he doesn't. He's a Taurus. Taurus is it's there.
Yeah.
It's your cerebellum. It's the back of your head.
Yeah.
He's got too much water in the blood, and there it is. It charged up there. So I started giving them these cell salts while they were all crying and doing scans at the hospital because they
Yeah.
thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, dude, because they actually, when you put them under your tongue, they dissolve like candy. So I'm like, you want some candy? He's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm like, put them under your tongue. So I started giving him these salts. And sure enough, it went away and he didn't have cancer. He didn't have a brain
Yeah.
tumor. And
Yeah.
they were all worried sick for like 3 weeks that he had a brain tumor. I'm like, it's not. It's
Yeah.
now the mosquitoes was a good guess, right? Like if you're into the germ theory thing,
Yeah.
it's a good guess. There's like mosquitoes, but again, they never asked how come the other 25 guys in the expedition didn't get it. And again, I would bet that if you started asking people who get malaria, when were you born?
Yeah.
They either are Taurus or they were born where Taurus is one of these missing months here, like at the butt, right? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like it's not rocket science, but it's science.
Well, no, yeah, it is just science. Yeah.
So here's one, too. So I don't know. We can get into some of the esoteric biochemistry, but some of the biblical parodies. But
Is there a list of common conditions? I mean, because you're saying like blood and fluid and all the rest of it. Is there like a list to say that this isn't this, like you were saying about malaria as an example?
yeah, and what people want to do is get this book, The Zodiac and the Salts of Salvation by Dr. George Washington Carey and Inez Perry.
Just give me 1 sec, Steve. Don't go away.
No problem.
When I said to you, I wanted to have this conversation with you,
Yeah.
this arrived 2 days ago.
You've got it. Yeah, there you go. And you've got the one with Inez Perry too, right?
Yes.
The bigger
Yeah.
book. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, you've got it. So now he did another great one. Now this gets into all the biblical esoteric stuff too, as well, and all the mythologies and all that. Some people, they're like, this is too woo-woo for me, right? For people who this is just a little bit too woo-woo, what you can do is you can go get this book right here. I'll show them. This is another book he did, The Biochemical System of Medicine. This is the same guy. Now, what these are is just when you have an ailment, you can just go to the ailment in the index. I'll just flip to one random, spasms or whatever. Yeah, whatever, whatever's wrong, you can look it up. And then this will tell you, here's one. So ulcers and ulcerations, right?
Yeah.
So it'll tell you, okay, and you'll always see there's these 4 salts that square at 90 degrees, and then usually a couple right before you, right?
Yeah.
It happens every time. There's your calcium sulfate. Remember I said that if you have ulcers, you'd be missing the Scorpio salt that does the vascular coatings, the calcium sulfate, the plaster of Paris. There it is. Yeah, there's your calcium sulfate, right? And calciums are your structural components, right?
Yes.
So you'll see these are the salts that you take to get rid of this. Now, some disorders need more,
Yes.
and some of them need less, right?
Yes.
But you'll always see typhus fevers. Fevers, usually there's an iron deficiency. Ferrum means iron. So ferrum phos is, now that's not iron. Like, do not take vitamin. When you see iron, that doesn't mean vitamins you go get from the store.
No.
That's iron shavings. This is a mineral called ferrum phos, which is real iron.
Yeah.
So don't go taking these iron tablets. They're just petrochemicals. Vitamins are just the petrochemical companies selling you more petrochemicals.
Yeah.
So anyway, so this book, The Biochemic System of Medicine, is great.
Brilliant.
And then another great book, if you want to really get into more like some of the weirdness of it all, there's a really good one here that combines both, also by him, called God Man, the Word Made Flesh. And this gets really into all of this. So this starts telling you a lot about what's going on in the Bible and mythologies that are really talking about this science of the zodiac and the body mixing together. So that's another awesome one. And that's what I was going to show you here. So John the Baptist, the word John comes from the ancient word Jonas, which means the soul or fluids of the body. That's why he's the Baptist. He's the fluids in your body. So the soul is the actual fluids of the body in this ancient teaching. It's not different. It's not like outside of you, like the spirit or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If the bodies die, the fluids die, and that's it. So the man loses his soul when he loses his body. Now, also when these fluids get deficient and these salts get deficient and your fluids are deficient, you lose your soul. Your brain can't function properly.
Yes.
It starts to malfunction.
Well, I get that when I get dehydrated.
You know it yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When the fluids are gone.
Yeah.
And these are the oils. So when your nervous system fluids aren't functioning properly, you get hyper nervous conditions and nervous breakdowns and anxiety, and you start getting angry, and you start being serial killers and rapists if it's a real extreme. And that's when they say, oh, this guy has no soul. You're like, yeah, literally. He's totally deficient. The word sin means deficient, without.
Yeah.
Chili sin carne means chili without meat. Sin means without.
Agua sin gas.
Right. So they're living in deficiency.
Yeah.
If people really want to look at this, I made a great movie
You did.
called Biochemistry Debunks Freemasonry, Religion, and Chickenpox, I think. Yeah. And then I also did a talk with Dr. Bear Lando and Amanda Volmar. Oh, here you go. It's Athena and Medusa. Now, Medusa's the same. She's the same thing as the Virgo. Like, when there are no oils, she turns you into stone, right? Virgo is also Medusa. When you're missing the Virgo oils, the potassium chloride, then the webs, the fibers that make up your tissues and skin and everything get really dry. You turn to stone, literally.
Yeah.
And that's the story of Athena and Arachne. That's this next one here, but Minerva. Athena is called Minerva in the Greek, and Minerva's mineral, but she's also Virgo. And Arachne is your fibers, right? She's the Gemini. So she's all the fibers and stuff. And Minerva gets jealous of her and then turns her into a spider. It's the same story. It's all just talking about oiling your tissues and your fibrin. You can see them there, right? So here's your fibrin. And this is why old people look all wrinkly, or people get arthritis or fibrin disturbances in their tissue.
Yes.
Right? Because they don't have enough oil. They're missing the Virgo salt, and they're also missing the Gemini salts that do the fiber and tissues that build them.
Right.
So they're missing the builder, and they're missing also the Virgo salt, the fiber.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to show,
How long you been studying all this stuff?
man, for a long time. Oh, here she is. Okay. So in the constellation of Virgo, there's an ancient constellation. There's a mini, so you can see Virgo is the main one here on the left, right?
Yeah.
And she's holding the wheat stalk in her hand.
Yes.
And then there's this little weird constellation. It's still in Virgo, but it's here. And it's called Coma, which means the desired. And you see the Virgin Mother with the baby sitting on her. Remember, she sits on the right side of the cross.
Yes.
She is on the right side of him, right? She's on the right before it crosses in from Virgo to Libra.
Yeah.
The brightest star in Virgo has an ancient name, which is handed down to us in all the star maps. And Hebrew is actually ancient Irish Eber, but I'll get into that another time.
Yeah.
And that word means Semek, which means preserved. Okay. That star is called Semek. But the name of the sign in Hebrew in Ilkoma is Bethula. Oh, little town of Bethlehem, right?
Yeah.
Christ is born in Bethlehem in a manger, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Bethula means a virgin. And in Arabic, it means a branch. That's why she's holding the branch.
Yes.
The wheat stick or the branch in the constellation. And they're connected. So Virgo, which means a virgin, and Virga, which means a branch.
Yes.
So Jesus is born of a virgin in Bethlehem in a manger. And when you look, well, what's a manger? Well, that's Sagittarius to Capricorn. I'll show you the goat. So remember we talked about how Cancer stops too as well for 3 days at the top of the analemma. Maybe I should show people the analemma real quick first before I show this, because if people don't know what the analemma is, it helps to look at what I'm talking about. Because this is a northern science, there's your Pisces, by the way. Jesus is Pisces. See the fish sign? You always see this on the left here with the cross.
Yeah.
That's the sun in the summertime in the analemma in the sky.
Right.
If you draw an imaginary line across the sky right here, that can be kind of called the ecliptic. The ecliptic is really the sun's path, but you can draw this imaginary line across here.
Yes.
What happens is there's a point right here at the crossing, at Cancer the crab.
Yeah.
you can see the sun stops going left for a while and it stops going up. It just sits here for a little bit, sort of peters out.
Yeah.
That's why that's Cancer. Then the sun comes up here, and there's the middle of July, the hottest part, right? And
Yeah.
then it gets then it starts coming back down east and out.
Yeah.
Outside the ring on the flat Earth plane.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden down here around December 21st to December 25th, the sun stops going lower in the sky. It doesn't
Yeah.
get any lower. You can see it's peters out here,
Yes.
and it doesn't go any more east. It just sits there
Yes.
for 3 days. So Jesus is buried in the tomb. We're born, right?
Yeah.
3 days, and then he dies and is resurrected after 3 days.
Yeah.
That's what's going on here inside. That's all a mythology for this. So here's December 21st, where we have the Christ Mass, Christmas, right?
Mhm.
And then what comes next is Capricorn, which is the goat fish. And then you've got the horse thing here. Sagittarius is the half man, half horse, right?
Mhm.
So you got the goat and the horse in the manger. Jesus is born in the manger. That's why, right? Jesus is born right there. Well, yeah, that's exactly when the sun starts rising again. It's been going further and further south and colder and darker and darker. And from that point on, it's going to come back up again in the sky, up to Analema. So it's born in a manger. All of these are parables for astrotheology and also astrophysiology.
Yes.
They're nothing more. These aren't like, and it drives a lot of people. This is really hard information for some people who have been taught something else like I had my whole life, but when you learn this, it actually all finally makes sense.
Yes.
You know what I mean? All these parables, you can read the Old Testament and the New Testament, and if you start knowing it's talking about this, suddenly there's nothing weird about it. You're like, oh, okay. Is that what's going on? It matches up in millions and millions and millions of other ways. I don't know if, well, maybe you want to ask some questions. I don't know if I want to. Let me stop sharing here.
I don't really have any questions. I think
Yeah.
I don't.
And our mythologies are all that too. All of the mythologies, they're that.
Yeah.
They're all talking about the planets and the signs in the zodiac. That's all they're talking about.
Mhm.
The sun's journey through the zodiac
Yeah.
and how they affect our body through these mineral salts.
Yeah.
It's just science.
Yes. Yeah. I don't have any questions, Steve. I'm staying
All
here
right.
focusing
Yeah,
on that.
cool. Yeah.
It's not like me to be lost for words, but you've done it. Well done.
Yeah. So yeah, people can watch a talk I did with on my Spacebusters BitChute, and I don't know if this one's on our YouTube channel, but we have a BitChute and Odyssey channel.
Yes.
And we do have a YouTube channel. They're called Spacebusters. The logo's an astronaut with that red like Ghostbuster thing around him.
Yeah.
So there's a talk called Esoteric Biochemistry with Dr. Bear Lando, Dawn Lester, and Amanda Vollmer and myself, where we get a lot more into this. Then I made a movie called Biochemistry Debunks Freemasonry, Religion, and Chicken Pox. And then the books that I just recommended are great starts for this too. Basically. And I mean, you can get so much. This is Freemasonry as well.
Mm-hmm.
This is all, Temple of Solomon, built without nail or hammer, right? Without sound, nail, or hammer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the temples of the soul of man. We were going to talk about the Christosoil. Yeah, this is really important.
Yes.
The Temple of Solomon is the temples of the soul of man, where sits your pineal gland, pituitary gland, right? It's the temple built without nail, hammer, or sound.
Mm-hmm.
They're just talking about this. Their hero, it was built by Hiram Abiff, Hiram Abiff, the Hiram of God of Aries here. And Biff means a smart elder or a father, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now what I did want to show people, so we were talking about, like, it's very important not to waste your seed, which is your semen. And even for women, this is what tantric sex is really all about. This is Kundalini, which, a lot of religions were like, that's the devil. You're messing around with the devil. You're like, no. The devil is the one hiding this from you.
Yes.
That's the devil. Here you've got your brain. Now, what happens is we have cerebrospinal fluid, which is called quicksilver or mercury.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a gland here in the head called the claustrum. See
Mhm.
this in the back of the brain?
Yes.
And it secretes an oil once a month and into your body. And this oil was called the Krios or the Christos by the ancients, right? And it comes down and down. This is Santa Claus coming down the chimney with
Chimney.
the presents, right? This is where we get Santa Claus
Yeah.
coming down the chimney with his presents. And then what happens is it gets down here into the sacral plexus. Do you see these nerves are the ones I told you that look
The
like
horse
the
tails,
horse
yeah.
tails? You
Yeah.
see them? Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
And they're down there in your hips. Sagittarius, that's your horse hips with the horse nerves.
Yeah.
So this oil comes all the way down the spine and then it sits down here for 3 days in the tomb like Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got a bone here called the sacrum,
Yep.
which when you have sex, it starts pumping like a pump,
Okay.
right? And when that starts happening, even if you don't, it will start doing it through meditation. You can do this through energetic meditation. Like I said, your chakras are electrical resistors.
Mhm.
This oil starts to get a massive electrical charge, right?
Right.
And then through the magnetic fluids that it's in, it gets drawn up. Jacob's ladder, the 33 vertebrae of the spine, right? Jesus dies at 33 and is resurrected,
Yeah, yeah.
right? This is your Freemasons.
33rd Masonry. Yeah, yeah.
This is exactly where this all comes from. And it goes up here and then it goes into the stomach, into the Virgo one. And this happens when the moon is in your sign. So you got to look every month. This happens to us once a month.
Mhm.
When the moon is in your star sign, watch for that. That's when this will happen. If you're not jerking off and riotous living, if you ejaculate, that oil will not come back up again. You'll have to wait till the next cycle, this and that. So this fluid it can also make your regenerative corpuscles, like your semen and your sperm and eggs,
Mm.
or it can rise back up and fix dormant brain cells. So they say, oh, we only use 10% of our brain. You're like, yeah, we do. But the ancients were using 90% because they knew this.
Mm.
And that's how they were building shit. We have no idea how they built
Yes.
because they're way smarter than us because they knew this science and we don't have it. You know, there's another one. There's your Da Vinci.
Mhm. Oh, for God's sake.
Do you see it? Your
Yep.
pineal gland and your, do you see it?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
When
yeah,
this
yeah.
when this Christos oil comes up and reignites your brain, it's the higher spirit of man and touches man with God's genius.
Yes.
That's why he drew the brain here. But it's all again, you couldn't paint this shit because it's painted out like a Catholic church. They'll kill you back then.
Probably still would now, to be
I
fair.
think they still, yeah, I think they still would. I think I have some more on this. Let me see what else I got on this. I love that one. How to tell someone if they are stupid. Wisdom has been chasing you, but you have always been faster. Yeah, there's not much more to it, but there's your body's toroidal field. So these salts, again, everything has a toroidal field.
Yes.
It's our heart has one. Every atoms are not protons, electrons, and neutrons. They are little toroidal fields with a positive charge, negative charge, and then a neutral center.
Yes.
So there are, yeah, atoms, but they're not what they teach us.
Mhm.
And everything's a toroidal field, which is called a tomb. All is a tomb, Adam, and Eve.
Mhm.
That's your red shift, blue shift.
Right.
Red is radiative. It comes out of the center of the toroidal field, raw radiation, raw red shift, right?
Mhm.
That's your tom. And atom is compression, divergent coming around into the magnetic field of the toroidal field and radiate comes out. But one side comes in, one side comes out. That's why we eat with the top of our head. We hear at the top of our head. We see at the top of our head. All of the electric field of this place we live in comes in here and we poo, pee, and ejaculate out the bottom. Radiation down in the red chakra, radiation red.
Yes.
See that?
Yeah, yeah.
So this is David Icke's Saturn moon matrix right here.
Right.
David Icke says that aliens have put bases on Saturn and the moon of electric of machines that are keeping us locked in here. No, our red chakra, we are locked between the red chakra and Kronos, the crown chakra.
Mm-hmm.
Your gold and your moon and Saturn. Kronos is the keeper of time.
Mm.
That's Saturn. He's up here, your crown chakra. And we
Gotcha.
get the word menstruation from menes, moon, fluid, monthly fluid. That's where our word month and many come. There's your David Icke. Now your heart has one too, and it's guess how big that field is?
Huge, I would think.
6 feet.
Aha. That's why they want to keep
Oh,
us 6 feet apart, maybe?
hey, how about that? Isn't that funny? Stand 6 feet apart. Remember that story? They said, oh yeah, it was like a little kid's like that's why they wanted you to stand 6 feet apart. Because this is where we interact with each other, like that video we saw where the kid,
Energetically. Yeah.
yeah, where the two were lighting up.
Yep.
This is the space that happens in 6 feet from each other. So they're like, oh yeah, you got to stand 6 feet apart. You're like, hey, isn't that a coincidence?
Yeah, really not.
What a coincidence, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm just kind of having a look if there's anything important I missed, and I don't think without getting too crazy. Yeah, let me just show that real quick. So if people want to know what a toroidal field is, I didn't make these graphics, by the way, so I didn't write these things.
Mhm. You'd have me thinking they're all the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So the Hermetic teachings is that all comes from mind,
Yes.
the mind of God, and it manifests down into the physical. Even Walter Russell has something very similar to this, that all comes from the white, still magnetic light of God.
Mm.
Right. Here's one I can, if this doesn't piss off the Christians too bad. Again, I apologize. This is just information. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. So you can take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Because I know this can be like, this guy's the devil and all that. And I'm like, okay,
Well, I
but
think one of the
not.
things I've always learned to do in a situation, if I get triggered by something, I want to know what the belief is that's causing me to behave the way I'm about to behave and feel what I'm feeling. And is it something I put there? Or is it something that was put there by somebody else that I'm just holding on to right now?
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like a pretty good sign. Like if something's triggering you, it means you need to take a look at that.
But you have to have a belief because with no belief, there's no meaning. So there's a
Yeah.
belief there that you need to uncover and see what it is.
And see, let me just show this real quick too, because so the zodiac, as I showed you, when you make the reason your priests are called cardinals, it's not because they're named after red birds and indigenous to Missouri.
Mhm.
It's because they're named after the four cardinal points of the cross,
Yeah.
which you can see the analemma here. Do you see that?
Yes.
So there's your cross. And I showed you you can cross the thing. Now this is from the art museum here in Copenhagen. This is some old Roman artwork. They did not crucify you on a T-shaped, little T-shaped cross. You got crucified on a capital T for two reasons. It was more sturdy to put the crossbeam over the very top of it and not nailed to the side of it,
Yes.
so it could hold the weight. And part of the joke of crucifixion was you had to hold your head up until you couldn't hold your neck anymore and you just choked yourself to death. That was part of their,
That's right.
that
It's a
was part of their,
suffocation thing, isn't it?
yeah, they want you to like hold your neck up until it can't and then choke yourself out. So they're like, we didn't kill you. So to think Jesus was crucified on a T-shaped cross is ridiculous, because he would have been crucified on a capital T-shaped cross.
Yes.
And that is not at all what happened. And that story comes from another guy called Tiberius, and actually all three survived the crucifixion, and then one died two died later in the medical care. Now, again, I'm not saying this is correct or not, right? There are different philosophies and principles about this.
Yeah.
But the way that the toroidal field works and the way these ancient spiritual texts are talking about is that part in the middle of the toroidal field, you have what's called the white, still invisible light, which is magnetic light. You know, when people have near death experiences and say they're in this white place, but they're like, it's not white. Like, they're like,
Yeah.
it's not white like that. I can't describe it. It's white, but it's not white.
Yeah.
It's very possible what's happening is they've returned into the white, still invisible light magnetic before they've crossed into the bright light, which would be the sun portal into the out of the firmament.
Mhm.
Now, this is your yin and yang. Now, with that, it's still. So in Walter Russellian science, all comes from the still white light, magnetic light of God. The mind of God fractures into all else. So when you breathe in and there's that pause when you're not breathing in, that's God. Anytime there's no movement and no light or anything, that's God. Then you breathe out and you're out here in the toroidal field. Then your breath stops. When your heart beats, that's out. There's the heartbeat, and here's God. When the heart's not beating, right in the middle. And then with that is the black still dielectric. Dielectric means electricity does not run through it.
Yes.
So a dielectric plane, this is the middle of your bar magnet, if you have a magnet, or the middle of a toroidal field.
Yes.
These two interact. Now, it can be called the monad or the dyad, the duad. Atman is another name, I think, for this area. Out of that interaction, some call it 0 point. This is the 0 point where these quantum physics say 0 point energy is all coming from. That's this. This creates the movement, the continuous movement of the toroidal field, which creates the 7 colors of the rainbow, the 7 chakras, the 7 music notes, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7. Like, all, you can go 7 out to infinity. That's all coming from this. And the light is called the luz. So when people say Lucifer is the God of this world, he's the God of this world. Yeah. Light is the God of this world because the real God is where the light's coming from. It's stillness. Everything in this world is vibrating and moving.
Yes. Even
when something looks still, even your desk, it's really vibrating at such a fast rate that you can't get your finger through it. You know what I mean? Like, so when it's not a guy. Lucifer's not a demon or a devil who was cast out of heaven. Heaven, here's where he gets cast out of. Light gets cast out of the center of a toroidal field where this is God, the white still magnetic light in the dielectric. In these teachings, God is magnetism, and this place is intelligent. It doesn't need a creator. It's in this place is intelligent. Just like when you throw a ball at someone, right? And they catch it real quick, and you go, "How did you do that?" And you're like, "Yeah, I caught it." And you're like, "No, but tell me how you did it. Like, how did you do it?" And you're like, "I don't know. I can just catch a ball, right? How are you breathing?" You're like, "I don't know. I can control my breathing and I can control my blinking, but I don't know how it works." How is your blood circulating? You're like, "I don't know. I didn't come with a manual, man. Shit's just going on. I'm just here for the ride."
And you got a problem if you think your heart's up to the job of pumping it.
Yeah, it's not even a pump anyway. Yeah, it's as it turns out, the heart's not a pump either. I mean, everything's full of shite.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to put it this way, Lucifer is the God of this world. It's the visible red shift, blue shift, reciprocating, convergent, and divergent fields, meaning one's going in, one's going out, one's going in, one's going out.
Yeah.
That are creating what we call the physical, and they're doing this by condensing, as we talked about in the beginning.
Yeah.
Into lower forms, and these minerals are what's helping pull the electricity out of these things and helping to cause these spin. So yeah, you could say Lucifer is the God of this world, but it's just an allegory for light. It's not a devil. And I won't even get into Satan, but that's another ridiculous allegory too as well. But yeah, so the point is, if this is all too weirdo for people, you can just get that other book that I recommended, The Biochemical System, and you can just look up your disease, dis-ease, and then find out what salts to take. You can also just look at your sign on this chart. We can maybe post a chart, or they can hit pause.
I'll create a web page for it.
Yeah, and find out when you were born. Yeah, I can send you the slides.
Yeah.
So you can find out when you were born. Look at that. You're going to probably already know. And this also this is why real astrology is not bullshit. They try to make us all think it's Mystic Meg. Astrology is real if you know this science. And this also starts to happen throughout your life. So just as I showed the clock, right, when we showed that it's every day in the time, there will come that point in your life where when you're a Virgo, when you hit that midpoint of your life, this is when you start having your Virgo problems. A lot of people get stomach problems and So they start having shit wrong. Yeah, with digestion, stomach, all this. This is like, it's also that clock goes around your life. So Aries would be, you're born. That's the beginning. This is Horus, all right. This is the sunrise. You're like, you're born. You're like, here we go, man. We got to ride around the clock, right? And if you're going to live, let's say 80 years on average, 82, right? So what's that? About 20 a pop till you get to the next second. You know what I mean? So you can divide that into sections and you'll start seeing every 20 years, it'll be about then 7 per one. Hey, 7, there it is, the magic 7 again. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, it'll be about 7 years, you'll be in each sign.
Yeah.
And this is when shit might kick off for you in here, or things will be happening. And these energies will also be at play in your life as well, at that whole phase in your life.
Yep.
So this cycle is like, what do you call that? Fractal.
Yes.
Right? Everything's a fractal of everything else. So these cycles work daily, monthly, your life, yearly.
To be fair, Steve, they probably also work by minute and by second.
I would think that they do I would think they work in the hour too. I mean,
yeah,
I've never tested it out, but it would be interesting to take a clock, and just see like if, see if there's like 5 minutes where things are great for you or whatever, like
it's an interesting thought, isn't it? But I mean, if it's working one way, it should be working the other way.
Yeah, it should be. And again, like there are certain people who are like A and B personalities and things like that. They might find that the reason they like to be up at night is because their sign is down in one of the night signs.
Yes.
And that they just feel like all of a sudden at 3 a.m, like getting up for 2 hours, you know what I mean? Because they're like, man. And then you can, when you go around these wheels, if you take astrology to this, Aries is a fire, that's personality. Taurus is money. A lot of Taurus people, my son's like that. He's like really into money and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, then you have Gemini, which is like your brothers and sisters. That's an air sign. So those people like family and brothers, and they love their siblings. Cancer is the home. Then you got, where am I at? Leo is like fortune, children, and fortune and pleasure.
Yeah.
So Leo people, they like money, pleasure, and fortune. Virgos are normally health. I smoke and drink, but that's why I take the salts. Libras are your partners. They're really into like their partners and stuff. They get really upset if their partners aren't totally like solid.
Yeah.
And then you've got, your Scorpios are death, transformation. So Scorpios are really magical, magnetic people.
Yeah.
If you know them, like they can be a real pain in the ass. They're magnetic. Like once they got you, they don't let go of you. You can't shake off a Scorpio. Like they're yours for life. And they're very magnetic personalities, You'll also start to see that your bodies look like this. People born mid-Leo, they have cat eyes. They have closer together eyes that are tilted like cats. People born Virgo usually have round heads, a little bit longer, right? Yeah. People born Sagittarius, they look like freaking horses. They have these really long things with these long, nice, pointy, long, narrow noses. They're like these Greek looking statues.
Yeah.
And round it goes. Like this shit is building. These archetypes are building your actual physical appearance, and you can learn this. You can. That's when some people say, "Oh, what about sidereal astrology, which is another Eastern form?"
Yes.
In this, they're not talking about actually where the stars really are every day in the sky. This is an archetype that you just draw around. This is imaginary.
Yes.
They don't give a shit if the constellation Virgo is sitting over here, right?
Yeah.
This is just a main archetype.
Yes.
And that's the thing when people say, "Oh yeah, well you should use your sidereal sign," and you're like, "Well, you don't look like that. When I'd use this sign, you look exactly like a Sagittarius. I can tell you're a Leo, you can." So this is a very old, ancient, true science, and it has nothing to do with the daily astrology, so to speak. But again, this is why the astrologers can know that you're going to get sick or might, they might say, "Oh, you're coming up to 48 years old. You better watch out for, this, that, or the other, depending on what your signs are." Well, this is how they know.
Yes. Gotcha.
It's science. It's not like hooty goody.
Yeah.
And they also know that too. They know you're going to attract. So if you're into money, like if you're a Taurus and money, sometimes you're going to fall into some money pretty soon, or you're going to get a contract, They just know these people's signs and they know these cycles, and that's
Yeah.
why they can tell them what's going to happen to them
Yes.
to a degree.
Yeah.
It can be vague. I know, like there are bogus ones that can just talk so vague that you're like, well,
It could be anything.
yeah. But also, like if they put it into your mind that it's going to
Yeah.
happen, now you've got manifestation. A lot of what they might be doing is helping you manifest it. You also have to watch out with placebo, nocebo, like careful what you wish for.
Yeah, defo.
Yeah, totally.
Mhm.
But that's all I got on this, man. You got any questions or anything blown away by?
Well,
Comments?
I think Blown Away started about 10 minutes in, and it's kind of stayed there all the way, even though I was reasonably familiar because I watched your video again the other night. But this was magical. So if you could do me a couple of things. One is send me the charts. Two is send me the list of the 12 that the bottle you said.
Oh yeah, I get mine from England. Now you can get if people go on Amazon, there are different brands. I used to get Highlands and I can't find them anymore. There's another brand called New Era, N-E-W, and the new word E-R-A.
Mhm.
And I get these. This place is in England. I order them from Helios, the sun, Helios Homeopathic Pharmacy, they're called. And you can find them on a website.
Yeah.
They're at 97 Camden Road, Turnbridge, Wells, Kent.
Yeah.
TN120R.
Yeah.
And then what you want to get is the combination 12 tissue salts, 30C. You want 30C. That's like how rough are they titrated?
Yeah.
And that's what you want to get for maintenance and prevention.
Yes.
Now, if you have an ailment like something else going wrong, what you'd want to do is find out what it is on these charts and all that, and then get that one alone extra.
Yes.
And just take it like 3 or 4 times a day, like until the ailment goes away.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And that book, The Biochemical System of Medicine, what's great is it's got testimonial. It's an old book from like I think early 1900s. It's got testimonials from actual doctors who are like, this kid was screwed. I tried everything. He was dying. And I gave him these 3 salts. And like in 2 days, he was like, he doesn't have scarlet fever anymore. Whatever. It's like, they were all dying of scarlet fever, and they're like 3 days. These kids are like, ripe as rain.
Yeah.
So it's great because it's got actual testimonials that, this works. If you take this stuff. Yeah. You can't have dis-ease if you're full of these.
That's right. Yeah.
That's why that book's called the Salts of Salvation.
Yes.
Because you can't get sick. Like I drink, smoke, like I never get sick at all because I just have these things all the time.
Yeah.
And they do come in your food. Like
you
can go, once you know what these salts are, you can get fruits, vegetables. They're in your beans, certain dairy products and stuff. They're in there. So you don't have to take pills.
Yeah.
I just think we're in a lucky age where they make them. And again, this isn't medicine.
No.
People shouldn't think of this as vitamins and stuff. This is really finely ground. This is the shit your body is totally made of. It's not, this isn't a supplement for your body. This is your body in a jar. You know what I mean? So there's a big difference between trying to heal something with medicine, a supplement or a plant, and trying to heal yourself by making your body what it's supposed to be so it can heal itself.
Fantastic. Steve, thank you.
Welcome, man. It's great. It's great to chat again, man. Yeah.
Let me just end the recording here because I want to stay talking to you anyway, if I may.
Right. Yeah. Cool.